Hello, good afternoon, happy Friday. Welcome everyone to the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview. I am Stephanie Puryear-Helling, founder of SPH Services, leading people and teams to success. And I am so thrilled today to bring this spotlight interview series to you over the next week as we gear up for RPM Careers Week, which begins this coming Monday, April 14th, and runs through Friday, April 18th. And I am thrilled to have my first spotlight interview, a pillar in the residential property management multi-housing industry. And before we chat with one another, let me tell you about the one and only Kirk Downey, my friend. You may or may not know some of this information, but I think it's worth repeating. So Kirk is an industry veteran. He has vast experience across multifamily. He has dedicated his entire professional career to helping industry supplier companies succeed, including Supplier Partner Resource, where he serves as the CEO and president. Kirk's leadership built the foundation of the National Apartment Association's National Supplier Council, growing the group's volunteer leadership from only 5 people to more than 70 individuals and counting, establishing structure and accountability. The NSC serves as a bridge between suppliers and property management companies. And Kirk's proactive approach has helped many across the industry navigate the challenges that were spurred by the COVID-19 pandemic, which I can't believe that was so long ago. Our industry is undoubtedly in a better place thanks to Kirk's monumental contributions over the years, said NAA President and CEO Bob Pinnegar. Notably, his work to professionalize and transform the National Suppliers Council has fostered a more connected industry across the country. NAA is thankful for Kirk, and we congratulate him on his well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award. So, Kirk, welcome. Congratulations once again, my friend, on your Lifetime Achievement Award, and thank you from me and from all of us in the industry on the work that you have done and that you continue to do to elevate us and help us to be more connected and more successful. I am so honored that you said yes to be here with me today.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here. And let's be clear, I did not write any of that. So to hear that now for the second time was a very humbling moment in San Diego a few years ago. And I appreciate the NAA and all the NSC members and all of my friends in the industry. You know, there's no way I would have ever achieved that without them. So it's wonderful to hear that once again. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Absolutely. So let's dive right in. So today, we are gearing up for RPM Careers Week. So I do have some questions about that towards the end. But what I do, for multifamily, is I'm in the people business, right? I'm a people development person. And you and I had a great conversation last week about the work that we both do to help elevate others and help them navigate change and build resiliency and wade through, all of the things that can occur in business that are challenges. So I want to continue that conversation. And I have a few questions for you specifically around transformational leadership, navigating change, and then building resilient teams. But also I want to tap into kind of your own personal resiliency. So my first question is about leadership. And, your leadership obviously has inspired teams to push beyond their perceived limits. What is one personal philosophy that you can share with our listeners, or an experience that has helped to shape your ability to lead in this way?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people read leadership books and they get pretty excited about those leadership books that they read. But if it doesn't hit you and it's not who you are, then you need to kind of rethink that. So for me as a leader, I like to tell people that as much as people think I like being in the front, I particularly like being in the back. I like getting things done. I like solving problems. That's really where I like to sit. But I would say no excuses. It's kind of become my thing. So I tell people our jobs as leaders is to eliminate excuses, because people are going to give you something and to them it's a reason, but it's really just an excuse for them not being able to succeed. And us as leaders, our job is to eliminate those excuses and let that person either achieve or move on to somewhere else. And that's, for some people, that seems harsh, but I think at the end of the day, that's really what we're here for. Our teams are depending on us to make good business decisions for them and their families. And that's what they expect of us. And as a leader, remember, that's what's most important. That's your number one role. And then the other is to eliminate excuses so people can succeed.
I love that. No excuses, because excuses really don't get us anywhere, right? From a personal development perspective, when we lean into excuses, we make no additional progress. And then it's also, I think, goes hand in hand with lack of accountability. And accountability is a huge part of leadership, holding others accountable, but most importantly, holding ourselves accountable. I love that. Okay, so my next question is around emotional intelligence, which we hear a lot about, EQ and IQ, and obviously being intelligent and, skilled and knowledgeable is important. But as a people development person myself, I would say that emotional intelligence is just as important, and in some cases more important than IQ. So for you, Kirk, how has emotional intelligence played a role in your success as a leader? And what advice would you give to aspiring leaders looking to strengthen this area?
I think you have to be careful when you say emotional intelligence, because I think people have a tendency to make that be the word that they want it to be more so than what it actually is. Emotions do matter. Empathy does matter. But data is what you have to base things on and then adjust your emotions accordingly, because data is what it's really all about. If you're looking at someone, for example, and they're not achieving the roles and responsibilities that we have, or am I just going to keep just letting them do that? No, I have a responsibility to that person. My responsibility is to put an action plan together. My responsibility is to help this person achieve what we agreed to from the very beginning. There's a contract here, and we need to do that. And I think a lot of times, it just seems to me lately, and I just had this conversation with someone I admire deeply. We're just giving up now. We're just letting people go, and we're just moving on. We're not developing. We're letting our emotions get the best of us, and we're just moving on, and we're starting all over again. And I think emotional intelligence depends upon what your description is of that. Just don't let it keep you from making good decisions for people. And remember, we are messing with people's lives and their families. And you need to take that very serious, and you need to give them everything you've got to help them succeed. Set them up for success and let them succeed. Don't let your emotions take you the wrong direction sometimes.
I love that. And, when we think about emotional intelligence, and you touched on this, we really need to put the other person first, right? When we're thinking about communicating with someone or understanding someone, as Stephen Covey always says, and in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And when dealing with conflict, look at it with a mindset of curiosity versus being critical. And that can take us a really long way. And as leaders, I think the responsibility is on us to keep our emotions in check while being empathetic and understanding to the emotions of others. I love that. Thank you.
And one thing you said there, Stephanie, think about is what you said with communication. To add to that, I think it's not just, to say the word communication. It's how are you communicating with your emotions, and what are you communicating? And I think that's a big failure inside of most companies, is how and what are we really communicating, and how that affects people. How you come across in that communication can crush people. And you have a huge role to not crush people. As a leader, your job is to lead people up. and you can't lead them if you're crushing them all the time. So you have to stay positive with that communication. So I love that you brought up communication.
Yeah, I love that. And we could like have a whole session just talking about, the skill of effective communication. And maybe we will. I think we might want to do a follow-up on that.
Sounds
All
good.
right. So looking back on your entire career and your leadership journey, can you share a moment where you recognized that your leadership had truly either transformed a team or a specific individual's career path?
Yeah, I do. I'm pretty blessed to have a few instances. So a few years, a lot of people don't know, I was in the restaurant industry for quite some time before I came into multifamily in the early 2000s. And that industry was also very good to me. And so I'd been in multifamily for a while, and I got a phone call, and I didn't recognize the phone number. And it happened to be a gentleman who was now a franchisee, had multiple restaurants, and I had not talked to him in 12 years. And he said that he had just won an award. And when he was up there, he mentioned me and told a story about something that I said to him. And I still don't know to this day if he knows how much that meant to me, because I was very proud of him to know that this was a kid who was a little lost. And now look at him, married, couple of kids, couple of stores, winning awards, because I knew it was there. I just needed to let him know, hold him accountable, and let him blossom and look at him. So, people did that for me. There's quite a few people in my life that did that for me. And you say pay it forward. You don't always realize that you're paying it forward sometimes. But in that instance, I knew that I'd paid it forward with some people who had done it for me. And that was a pretty blessed day when I got that phone call.
That's so awesome. And that really, to me, in large part, that's why we do what we do, right? To develop others and help others succeed. And like you said, pay it forward. And, the meaning of that when you know that you've made that much of an impact or a difference on another person's life is huge. John Maxwell talks all the time about, there's a huge difference between success and significance. And sure, we all want to be successful, but to have a life of significance where you're impacting the lives of others is priceless, right?
I love that. John is a wonderful man, and he makes things a lot simpler than a lot of people make it. And I think, one of the things I tell people is you got to decide, do you want to be successful or do you want the perception of success? So many people are more interested in the perception than they are the actual. They just don't realize it yet.
I love that. Okay. My next question for you is about resiliency, which is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm actually writing a book on resiliency. I'll share more later, and developing a course. And I see examples of resiliency with people that I have worked with in my career, or that I know, in my personal life, or sometimes I'm lucky enough to know personally and professionally. So I love to ask people about their own personal resilience and ways that they have built resiliency within their team. So my first question is, how have you cultivated resilience within your teams, and what strategies do you think have been most effective in keeping morale strong, especially during challenging times or times of change?
I would say, you've got to be really, really patient. But if you don't have a structure and you don't have a plan, you'll never get there. And so a lot of people just go in and just hope that it just all works out. And that's just not going to happen. You have to have a plan. The biggest part of having a plan with a team is the team needs to be aware of the plan. It's not a private plan for you. It's you discussing with them what this plan is going to be. And so in my younger years, I used to always say, listen, we can sit around the table as knights of the round table and we can discuss everything till we beat it in the ground. But sometimes my job is just to move us forward. this we don't need to sit around and talk about everything all the time, because then we'll never get anything done. So I think the key is being patient, but also knowing that you've done the due diligence and you know that what you've decided is right, and this is what's for the betterment of the team. And that's what your job is to lead this team to the success of whatever that is that you've decided. It could be, reaching the revenue goal. It could just be, we want to grow this team, whatever that may be. But there has to be a plan. It has to be communicated, and everybody has to be aware of it. It can't be your own private plan.
Yeah. And I see that happen oftentimes in terms of leading change or, change management, where over 75% of change initiatives fail in organizations, according to statistics. And you and I touched on that a little bit last week. And that happens because people are not, first of all, strategic, but a big piece of that is lack of communication and lack of pulling in the right people to be a part of that. And so I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni, and I leverage his 5 dysfunctions of a team. And obviously the foundation is trust, right, on a team. But he also talks about conflict. Conflict is one of the reasons that teams fail. And oftentimes when people are creating a plan and maybe not communicating the plan, they're doing it because they're keeping it in the ivory tower, right? Or they feel like, well, I'm not ready to kind of reveal that yet, or they don't need to know that yet, or I'm not ready to tell them about it until it's happening. But that's the worst possible thing that we can do, because as Patrick says, you need to foster a healthy level of conflict, because if you don't have the healthy conflict, you're never going to get the commitment. And one quote that he says that I love, which simplifies it, is people don't buy in unless they weigh in. But they can't weigh in if you never communicated it, right? So I absolutely love what you just said there. So my next question is, leadership comes with intense pressures, as we all know, right? Typically, our biggest problems have a first name and a last name, and sometimes that's the person in the mirror. But leadership comes with intense pressures. How do you personally maintain resilience and prevent burnout for yourself?
It's a really good one. I'm just one of those people that don't believe burnout's a real thing. And I'll tell you why. I think it's just, once again, an excuse. We can just say, I'm burned out. I work too hard. And for me, I go, well, what does that mean? You're working too hard. Or is it because your time management's bad? Or is it because I've not done a good job of making sure that the outside factors, am I putting too much on you? Am I talking to you about things that maybe aren't your roles and responsibility inside this company, which we as leaders have a tendency to do? Who are those people we can tell? Maybe I'm giving you too much information. Maybe I need to just stay focused on what your true responsibility is in this company and not bother you with these other things. I think that's what I would really think about when I'm talking to somebody, because I'm a person that really just doesn't get very worked up. My wife will tell you that pretty regularly. It can seem like the world is collapsing, and I just don't get worked up about it, because you know what? At the end of the day, I'm still going to have my amazing wife. I'm still going to have my incredible kids. I'm going to have my incredible grandkids. I'm going to have all these wonderful things, and I'm going to be okay. And no matter how bad it gets, I just always believe that I'm going to be able to get to the other side. And listen, my life has not been perfect by any means. I definitely have run into a wall many a times, but I don't have any problem busting through that wall either. So I don't run scared. I don't let things get to me too much. I believe that I've got enough friends and family that I can bounce things off of, that are going to give me great follow up and give me good feedback for me to go, you're right. It's going to be okay. You're going to get through this. And so I don't know. I'm probably a tough person to ask that question now, because my wife will tell you, I just don't get worked up about things. I always believe that regardless of how it ends up, that's how it was supposed to end up. And that's
Everything that you're saying, I'm smiling, because you are a great person to ask that question to. And what I took out of what you said, and I put it there on the screen, on the banner, but you focus on gratitude. And I am such a huge believer in that, because no matter what terrible storms we're going through in life, I agree with you 100%. There is always, always, always something to be thankful for. And I think another huge part of your, resiliency, which comes from that gratitude, but it's really your mindset. Everything that you just talked about was such a growth mindset perspective. Instead of settling into fear or limiting beliefs or chicken little, the sky is falling, right?
Right.
And so I think that those strategies that you use, Kirk, are huge for everyone who's listening or is going to listen to this later, because, we hear maintain a positive mental attitude and focus on gratitude and shift your mindset. And I am a firm believer in those things. But sometimes when some people hear that, they're like, oh, that sounds, like Pollyanna stuff, or you must have not had any challenges in your life. And actually, it's quite the opposite, right? But if you look at really any leader that or successful individual, whether it's in the sports arena or, your favorite actor or, someone who's done great stuff in the world, humanitarian, I can guarantee you that every single one of those people has a story that you don't know about. And they have gone through some serious trials and tribulations that, sure, they could have chosen to give up, right? Or to throw in the towel, but they focused on gratitude and having that positive growth mindset and focusing on, okay, this happened. That was crappy. Now what? What am I going to do about it? And how do I find that solution? So I absolutely loved everything that you just shared. It was super powerful stuff. And you are the right person to ask that question to.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so this kind of leads into my next question, and I may have given it away, but that's okay. I'm going to ask it anyway. So, do you believe that resilience is an inherent trait that we're born with it based on, our personality type, et cetera? Or do you believe that it's something that can be intentionally built?
I guess most people would probably say it's both, but I really do believe it's things that happened in your life have a tendency to make you a little bit more resilient. You have to fall on your face enough times to realize that hurts. Then you'll move on. And like what you were saying, we've all had bad things happen to us, right? But I think things that happen in your life are what's going to form you into who you become. Things that happen in your childhood absolutely can haunt you, but you can't let them change who you are. That those things happen, but you can't use that as an excuse your whole life. My parents divorced or this happened. You just use that as an excuse for the rest of your life. You got to pick yourself up because nobody else is going to do it. So you got to pick yourself up and you got to keep going. My mother is one of my heroes in life. And the thing that I tell people about my mother that I love more than anything is that I know my mother draws a line in the sand. And everybody goes, well, what does that mean? And I go, I know there's a certain line that you don't cross with my mother. And I'll tell you what it is. My mother, you will never keep my mother from going to church. If there is a day and you've scheduled something, my mother will look at you and go, yeah, I can't do it then. I'll be at church. And you just go, what? And she goes, yeah, you don't get to come between me and God. And now to some people that seems a little extreme, but I love that. I like to know, and a lot of times pay attention to this going forward when you're talking to people, and you'll see people easily swayed. They're changing all the time. And then you'll meet this person that you know who they are and what they stand for. And that is who they are. And I respect that. Whether I am in the same line with them or not doesn't matter. I respect that you have a line that you don't cross. This is who you are. And maybe it's because I'm old, but I respect people like that. If you can easily be swayed by money or popularity and that changes you as you go along, you still haven't figured out who you are yet.
Yeah.
And for anybody else to figure out who you are, you got to figure that out first. Who are you? What do you stand for? About 10 years ago, a story that no one knows. I was a little getting a little worked up about death, and I was way too young to be worried about that. And all of a sudden, it hit me: what would my kids and family say about me if I were to die right now? And I didn't want them to say, Dad works really hard or Dad did that. I needed something else, and so I felt like I was doing it. But it's been a huge focus of mine over the last 10 years: is who does Kirk Downey stand for? What do people think when they think of Kirk Downey? And I'm not trying to create that. I just knew I needed to be who I am. And if people accepted that, good. And the ones who didn't accept it, I'm okay with that because I'm going to be me. And I hope that you like who me is. And if you don't, that's okay. I'll be all right with that.
Yeah, I love that. So I put the banner up there as you were talking, who are you and what do you stand for? And there's a great book that is called For, FOR, and it's all about what do you stand for. I would highly encourage you to read it if you haven't, but a similar philosophy with what you were saying. And, I also agree with you, by the way, that resilience, some people may have a tendency to be a little bit more resilient just based on their sort of genetic makeup, right? And personality type. But the rest of it, it's all something that can be built and learned over time. And it goes back to mindset, back to gratefulness. But I really loved what you said about knowing who you are and being true to that, which I encourage every single person to do, because if you don't, and what's that saying? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? And people who establish, who they are and they're firm in their identity, they're happier. They lead happier lives because they know who they are and they don't waver from that, right? And sure, can it be lonely sometimes? Maybe when you have boundaries, maybe, but you're also going to attract the right people into your life that are aligned with you. And isn't that what you want? Right.
Well, it's like being around that person or that leader that's always reminding you of who they are. And then you go, yeah, but that's not what your actions are showing. So if you keep having to remind me that you're this person, you're probably not that person. So if you have to tell me that, it means that you're not. So you keep reminding me, I'm an honest person. It's like people say that, I find myself, I'm an honest person. And I go, that means you're not, because you keep having to remind yourself and everybody else that you're an honest person. It's like when people do their mission statements and they'll say, hey, we're a company of integrity. And I go, if you have to remind people that you have integrity, you might want to decide whether you actually have it or not. You shouldn't have to remind people that you have integrity. You should just have it.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's an important core value to list, as long as you have the definition so that everyone understands what that means and that we're upholding this or reinforcing it. But I agree with your philosophy that if you have to tell someone that you're a nice person or that you're a really good person, but your actions don't reflect that, actions speak louder than words, right? And we are to others what we show them, and we are what we repeatedly do. Right? We are what we repeatedly do.
Yeah, great quotes. I love it, Stephanie. Great quotes.
Yep. Awesome. When people talk, I hear quotes, and sometimes I hear lyrics. It's just the way that my brain works. I can't help it.
I do the same thing. Lyrics, quotes are kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and you sing, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. So we need to plan a karaoke at one of our next national events.
For sure.
Fun. All right. So my next questions are about leading change. And I know you have been through a lot of change and led change in your different roles. And now as a consultant, you do a lot of this. So as you've led teams through change, what are some key lessons that you have learned about overcoming resistance to change and ensuring smooth transitions?
I just had this with one of our clients, and we spent an entire day talking about this. And how do you stop the resistance or deal with resistance, because you're absolutely going to have it? Is my favorite 3-letter word is the word why. And so if they tell me something, I'll go, okay, well, why? And 50% of the time, they don't have an answer. And so if you can figure out the why of why they're doing it the way that they're doing it, and then after you get the why, how's that working out for you? And then they'll usually go, oh, it's not going, okay, then. So you're just going to keep doing it. What are you trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to get? And let's talk about that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying maybe it just needs to be adjusted a little bit. Maybe we didn't have it in the right sequence. And so let's go back and figure out what happened, the why, and let's adjust accordingly, because if you're not evolving, you're dying. You've got to constantly keep evolving here. Your company is going to have to evolve regularly. It can't just keep being the same way all the time. People, the younger people now, you cannot communicate the same way with someone under 25 as you can as someone who is 60. There's just a different philosophy. And I'm not saying that either's right or wrong, but you have to understand it's not my job to just tell you what to do. I have to get you where you need to be without you knowing that I got you there. I need you to get there. And then when you get there, I need to let you have that glory. That's you. And I need to step back and go, look at you. I'm very proud of you right now. And too many leaders want to take all the glory. And that's not leadership.
No, it's not. So there's another saying. So when something goes well, my team did a great job. When something goes wrong, I am going to take responsibility and figure out how to change it.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone's got to fall on the sword, right? And so the leader's got to fall on the sword and then help the team pick themselves back up and get them back where they need to be, but you're right. At the end of the day, it was my responsibility. Even if someone on my team failed, it's still my responsibility. I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to make sure that those things didn't happen, or I didn't set them up correctly for them to have that success. I'm not saying that person doesn't have some responsibility. I'll talk to that person, but you absolutely have to, and I see people, blame it on their clients or blame it on this. It's just a constant blame game. And it's just like, if you just stop for a second, take responsibility and figure out how to get through this, make some changes. It's okay. It's okay. Just adjust. It's going to be okay.
Yep. Love that. Love that so much. Okay. So my next question about leading change is, as a leader, how do you balance creating stability for your team while also embracing disruption? Because you said, and it's on the screen, if you're not evolving, you're dying, right? So how do you balance creating stability while also embracing disruption as an opportunity for growth?
Well, the stability has to start with me. I have to be consistent. I have to be consistent on my message. I have to be consistent on how I treat everyone. And I think that starts with meetings. And I tell you, as a consultant, I have sat through some just awful meetings to where I just go, what are we doing? This doesn't make any sense. And meetings are crucially important to me. And I know that you being part of the Maxwell group, I've done the EOS. There's just certain things, you go back to Stephen Covey, one of my heroes, there's just certain things. Meetings really do matter. And our industry is really bad about having meetings about the meetings that we're going to have.
Yeah.
And it's just constant meetings that really get nowhere. But the people who run them leave and think, man, that was a really good meeting. And you go, for you, it wasn't good for anyone else. It was a terrible meeting. And so I really do spend a lot of time with my clients and go, okay, what do you think the main goal to accomplish during this meeting is? There's got to be one thing. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And it can't be just talking about KPIs and talking about pipelines, because everybody else disappears while you're doing that. So I would say that. The other is, I think I agree with you 100%. There has to be some disruption. And so when the key to a good meeting is to identify, discuss, and solve issues. And so you have to realize that, first off, that you have them. If you don't think you have issues, well, you've missed the boat, because I guarantee you there are issues. You're just not leaving the door open enough to where people can tell you what they are, because they're afraid how you're going to react, which now comes back to how consistent. You may be consistently ignoring what people are saying to you. And maybe you should be a little bit more open about what's being said, because if it's an issue to them, it's an issue to everyone. And that issue needs to be talked about, and that issue needs to be resolved as a team, to where we can then get to the end and say, is everybody in agreement with this resolution? And everyone goes, yes. You know what you can do now? Now you can move on. There was no closure. It just keeps festering, right? And no one ever wants to jump in and solve the issue. Solve the issue. It's amazing how good your meetings become when you're not little something that's just been irritating everybody for months now, still keeps rearing its ugly head, and no one wants to solve it. And I'm one of those that I think, you gotta you gotta solve it, even if it gets ugly and you're not real happy with it, and maybe it doesn't go the way you want it to go as a leader, but it went the way it needed to go.
Well, and that goes back to what we were chatting about briefly earlier with that healthy level of conflict, and where organizations and teams get themselves in trouble is, which by the way, based on DISC personality profiles, so the majority of society statistically is conflict avoidant. I'm sure you're not surprised by that, right? So because we've got so many people that avoid conflict because it can feel scary and all of those things, you've got this artificial harmony that exists on one end of the spectrum, where people are smiling and happy and friendly to each other, but it's not real, right? Because what's real is the sidebar conversations that are happening at happy hour or the water cooler or via text, where they're really saying what they feel or think, but they weren't brave enough to say it during the meeting. So as leaders, we have to create that environment during the meeting, like what you're saying, to allow for and expect and encourage a healthy level of conflict. And so when I'm conducting breakout sessions or team meetings where there's going to be some discord, one of the ground rules is, everyone has a voice and everyone gets to speak up, and everyone should speak up, even if your opinion is the most unpopular opinion in the room. Even if no one else agrees with you, we still need to get it all on the table. Then we can discuss it. Then we can flesh it out. Then we can reach consensus and make that decision and find that solution. But once we do that, no more sidebar conversations. We've now all got to be on the same page because we thoroughly discussed it. We decided this is the best possible solution for the majority. We're moving forward. But encouraging that healthy level of conflict is so huge, and it's a big challenge for most teams.
I love that you said that, because there are people that in an organization don't feel like anyone listens to them, right? Mm-hmm. So now let's just say they do get to speak up. You get them to speak up, and no one agrees with them. Well, now you get to spend time with them and go, okay, what'd you think about that? No one agreed with me again. And you go, well, why do you think that is? Now you have a teaching moment. Why is it? So did you just say that because that's how you really feel, or because you knew that it wasn't going to be the popular? Did you go down that path on purpose and you don't even realize that that's what you're doing? You're just that person who just believes that you need to throw that in there.
Which there are some who
that just
get satisfaction out of being that contrarian, right?
Yeah, now you've got an opportunity with this person, and a lot of times, we as humans, we don't even realize that we're doing that. That if you're having a bad day, you just realize you're being negative until someone goes, "Why are you so negative today?"
Yeah.
And you're going, "What do you mean I'm being negative?" And you think, "Am I really?" And you go, "Oh, so I'm weighing all of my feelings, as we were talking about earlier, on everybody else because of how my day's been going, or my week, or I'm going through a tough time at home right now, and I'm bringing it to work." Well, that's not everybody here's fault or responsibility. Why are you putting it on them? Not that it's not important, but now we can figure that out. And let's talk about, how do we get you to where, when you're in those discussions, that you're bringing something that you're now going to walk away and go, okay, I brought something good to this conversation. So I think it's a great teaching moment.
Absolutely. Well, in some cases, it could be that person's delivery, right? That could be why others didn't hear them or agree with them, because maybe how they were articulating that thought or potential solution, it wasn't the solution itself, but it was how they communicated it. So there's so many different layers, but I agree, it's an awesome teaching moment. But it also goes back to trust. And so people are more likely to feel comfortable having that healthy level of conflict if they know, like, and trust the group they're with. And so if you feel like people in your meetings aren't comfortable with the healthy conflict, then you need to go back to, okay, do we really trust one another? And if not, how do we build that? And part of that is by being authentic and human. Okay, so my second to last question. What approaches have worked best for you when it comes to communicating change in a way that fosters buy-in rather than fear?
It's going to come down to communication again. So we put out what the goal is, and then I like to go around and say, what does that mean to you? So tell me with what I just said, what does that mean to you? Because you may end up getting 5 different things, right? You got multiple people in the room, and now we'll go, okay, so if we were to do this, what would be us a year from now going, we did that. That was a victory. And so now we've all come up with something together, and now we're going to achieve it. Because buy-in comes because people feel like they're being heard, that they had something to do with whether you think that person's thoughts or decisions matter, they have to be involved. If not, they're never going to buy in on what you're doing. All you've done is turn this into a dictatorship now, and people don't want to work in a dictatorship. So not saying that everybody is going to be right, but as a group, we'll figure out, hey, what Bill said, we can all agree is probably what the route we need to go. Cool. That's where we're going to go. Now, everybody got their say so, but we've all agreed this is the route we need to go. Well, now no one can say anything later because we all came to an agreement together. You told us you were in on this. You can't later change your mind and come back and say, oh, I changed my mind. I don't want to do that anymore. We all worked together on this. We came up with this plan together. So I think buy-in is really, it comes down to what you were talking about earlier also. People have to know you, like you, and trust you. And that trust is so much bigger and harder to get than I think people truly realize. And if you have a team or you have a leader that people just don't trust, it's usually because of their actions and words don't match.
Yep.
And people work for people. People don't work for companies.
100%.
And they want money doesn't always change everything unless it's an enormous amount. They got to take care of their families. People want to be somewhere where it's not always about being heard. They just know where they stand. They know what the plan is. They know exactly what they need to do because not everybody wants to be up front leading, even though some believe they can. They just want to know this is what's expected of me. I know that. It's very apparent. And as long as I do those things, my life's going to be where I can go home and be with my family at night. Then you got the other ones who think very much outside of that box. But majority of your people just want to do their job and then they want to go home. And if you make that life stressful at work, because usually the stress comes because they don't know what's the real plan here. What's the real vision? It seems to change all the time. I don't know how my boss, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and my boss calls me at 7:30 and I'm scared to answer the phone because I think they're going to yell at me. Well, you created that as the leader. Why does that person think that? Because you probably have become that person. If things aren't going well, you're not very good at disseminating information from your boss down to your people. You need to remember your job is to protect them. This is the message. How do I get that to my team? Because I know them better than anybody for them to hear this. How do I put that in words for them to understand this so we can just get the goal accomplished? And I think a lot of people just come in and it's what the board said.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use words like that. Say, hey, this was information that was given to me. I want to talk to you guys about it.
Yeah.
Don't blame it on this, imaginary person that sat in a room somewhere. It needs to be you. You're the leader of this team. And this is the plan that I put together based on the information I was given of what we need to accomplish. Now, team, how are we going to do this? And everybody wants to put it on somebody else and blame it on somebody else. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility. Stop blaming it on the board.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And one other thing that you said that I think is key for people to remember, the leader saying, how does my team need to receive this? How do I need to craft this message in a way that they can receive it so that we can implement the change, right? And move forward. I love that. All right. So I know that you're on a time crunch today. So I want to, stay committed to that. I do have one sort of final question. And so next week is Residential Property Management Careers Week, April 14th through the 18th. And as a pillar in the residential property management industry who's done so many amazing things, obviously our goal is to celebrate all of the wonderful people who work and serve in residential property management. But I also want us to be thinking about people who maybe haven't yet been in this industry and the wonderful opportunities that are available. So for future leaders, Kirk, considering a career in residential property management, what would you say makes this industry not just a job, but a fulfilling and impactful career?
Well, when your wife is Angie Pusateri, you will quickly understand when you're married to a legacy family member of what this industry really is about. Her father was Tony Pusateri, and we lost him in 2011. And there wouldn't be education, in my opinion, in this industry if it wasn't for the leadership of her father. And she walked right in his footsteps and beyond and created her own path and is an incredible educator and an incredible person to be around. But just to be around her for these 13 years, you can see what it means to her. The term multifamily is not by accident. This is family, and it's a small industry yet big, right? But what I love about this industry is you're very seldom will you meet someone who doesn't really care about you and what's going to happen with you here. Those doors are wide open for anyone at whatever level they come in. That door is open. So it's not like in a lot of industries where someone has to die for you to get your opportunity to move forward. These doors are open as soon as you get here. It is up to you. How good do you want to do this, and how hard are you willing to work? It's not going to be a free ride, but you come in here, this industry is wide open to whatever level you want to go. Male, female, it does not matter. This industry is open to everyone. And so you come in here, the door's open, walk through the door. You don't have to knock it down in this industry. It is open for you. Walk through the door, get it done, and you'll see an opportunity. And along the way, you're going to make such great friends and people who are going to support you through the whole time. It's a blessing to be in this industry. And I'll tell you, I know we're limited on time, but you brought up the Lifetime Achievement Award, and it was not something that I was expecting to get by any means. But I did have someone ask me one time about a year ago and said, Kirk, what have I got to do to win a Lifetime Achievement Award? And I'm not a person at a loss for words too often, but I just kind of sat there for a moment and I went, well, if you're trying to figure out how you win a Lifetime Achievement Award, you'll never win it, because that's not, you're going into this the wrong way. A Lifetime Achievement Award isn't something that you decide. A Lifetime Achievement Award is something that others decide. And that's where it humbled me so much, because so many people felt that I should have it. And I just loved what I did the whole time. And that was really what it meant to me, because I was part of multifamily and these were my friends and I care about everybody. My wife and I do the events that we do because we like everybody being in the room, whether you're property management, a supplier, association executive, we don't care. We like everybody to be in the room because it's an industry of such incredible people, incredibly caring people. And to me, if you're coming into this industry, you're lucky. And your career path's up to you. It's not up to anybody else. If you want it, it's there for you. You just got to make sure that you're willing to do what it takes to get it done.
I love that so much, Kirk. Any final words as we kind of wrap this up? I want to thank you, by the way, for taking the time to share your wisdom with us and your experience and your thought leadership about leadership and leading change and building resiliency. And then also encouraging, new people to consider this incredible multifamily residential property management industry. But any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I would tell you right now, the big focus that I'm talking with people about is visibility and accountability. And I think if you really think about those two words, There's so many buzzwords in the industry right now, and we won't go down that path of those words. But I think if as long as you've got visibility into things and you're taking accountability and in turn holding people accountable, but you can't hold people accountable for something that they didn't know that they were accountable for. So it's going to go back to the very beginning you and I talked about is what are we communicating? When I bring somebody on, we're inviting someone into multifamily, and this is their first shot. You have to go over the roles and responsibilities of that person. This is what the role and responsibility that you have. So it's very clear path of what they're supposed to be doing and what's expected of them. And then you need to, as the leader, understand that you have just as much responsibility to them as they do to you. And if you're not doing that, then you're not really leading. So true visibility, true accountability. If those two things stay in place, I will tell you your work life and things will be so much cleaner. You'll stop making up excuses on things. Accountability, just be accountable for who you are, be accountability for the people that you're responsible for, but make sure that they know what they're accountable for too.
I love that so much. Well, my friend, it's been an honor and a pleasure, and we should do another one of these at some point because I think there's so many great things that we could talk about. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon and your day, and thank you, my friend, for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview with Kirk Downey. Please stay tuned. We have 2 other incredible spotlight interviews today, and then we will be doing several interviews next week, kicking off Monday, April 14th, RPM Careers Week with our RPM Careers Week subcommittee celebrating each of you. Thanks for tuning in. Make it a great day.
Have a good day.